In September of 2001, Whitney Houston walked onto the stage at Madison Square Garden. She was a ballad powerhouse who still had one of the most amazing voices in human history. But visually, the public was horrified. She looked completely gaunt. Her arms were stripped down to the bone. She looked severely emaciated. A human being in desperate, transparent need of a medical ward and a season of rest. But instead, she was handed a microphone.
This is real. The bones.
There have been times when I know I was going through a lot of emotional stress. My eating habits were awful.
Whitney dying. Crack rehab fails.
Just 1 month before this performance, in August of 2001, Whitney had signed an unprecedented $100 million contract renewal with Arista Records, the biggest recording deal in music history at the time. She had been handed a historic advance, and the label immediately required her to maintain a hyper-visible public profile to market her upcoming projects and recoup their massive investment. Whitney wasn't the first icon to be run into the ground by a 9-figure contract, and she wouldn't be the last. We live under a cultural illusion that the pop superstar is the ultimate symbol of human freedom. We assume that when the wealth reaches 9 figures and the mansion gates close, they possess the ultimate luxury, the ability to say no, the option to walk away, to retire. But hyperfame is far more sinister. Pop stars are trapped inside multi-year, multi-album contracts that render them legal property. They are drowning in unpayable label debts that mask themselves as advances. And worst of all, they are carrying the financial livelihoods of hundreds, sometimes thousands of employees on their backs. George Michael once famously described modern pop stars not as artists, but as professional slaves. In this video, I'm breaking down the terrifying corporate machinery that turns human beings into infinite financial resources, and why in the music industry, the only way out of the machine is a tragic end or a multi-million-dollar escape room. It's easy to ask, why don't they just live off of their millions? You can be a billion-dollar economy on paper, but practically cash poor.
Everything's not going the way we so-called quote-unquote would want it to be.
We are the biggest selling female group ever. 10 million albums worldwide. We have been in this business for 5 years. And we are broke as broke can be. I know it's hard to believe because we've sold so many albums, but it is possible. That's the deal here, and we're not happy at all.
When an artist reaches the absolute apex of global stardom, they cease to be a person. They become a self-contained economy. They have handlers, publicists, business managers, bodyguards, stylists, backing dancers, and personal assistants. Behind every singular pop star is a hidden payroll of people whose livelihoods depend entirely on them waking up and getting on stage. That's a lot of pressure for one person to carry. If a normal worker takes a sick day, the company keeps running. If a pop star takes a sick day, $1 million arena tour grinds to a halt. Insurance claims skyrocket. Crew members don't get paid. The pressure to maintain an image of absolute perfection, to act as a flawless human robot, is forced upon them, even when the behind-the-scenes reality is night and day. The famous Notorious B.I.G. line, "More money, more problems," isn't a cliche. The more money you make, the more money it costs just to exist. When your monthly expenses are $1 million, you can't afford to pause for a single month. To keep the lifestyle, to pay the entourage, and to feed the corporate machine, a constant, aggressive stream of high-level revenue must keep flowing in. And the moment an artist tries to stop that flow, the rubber band snaps and the debt begins to accrue. Record labels operate essentially as predatory banks. For decades, an artist could sell millions of records and still find themselves deep in debt to their own label. Because of this, recording albums rarely makes a star rich. The only way for a musician to generate massive liquid income to clear their debts and feed their economy is to do the one thing that physically destroys them: live touring. But what happens when you tell your employer you don't want to do it anymore. Consider the legendary bitter beef between Michael Jackson and Sony Music. Following his Dangerous album, Michael wanted autonomy, independence, and a clean separation from the corporate entity. But he was locked into a brutal multi-year 6-album contract. Imagine standing before your employer, handing in your resignation, and having them look you in the eyes and say, "Nope, you owe us 2 more albums before you are legally permitted to walk free." When a celebrity refuses to perform or to leave their house during a mental breakdown, they are breaching multi-million-dollar contracts. They face immediate lawsuits, frozen assets, cash flow crises, and total bankruptcy. They are products owned by a corporate entity, and a product is not allowed to retire.
There is no such thing as resignation for an artist in the music industry. Effectively, you sign a piece of paper at the beginning of your career, and you're expected to live with that decision, good or bad, for the rest of your professional life.
George Michael literally went to the highest court in the UK to argue that a pop star's inability to quit is a fundamental violation of human rights. And he wasn't alone. During that same decade, Prince took it a step further. He painted the word slave directly onto his cheek for global television broadcasts, changing his name to an unpronounceable symbol. Why? Because he realized that despite his multi-million-dollar contracts, Warner Brothers legally owned his master tapes. Master tapes are the DNA of an artist's music. Whoever owns the masters owns the copyright, streaming royalties, and final say over where the songs are allowed to exist. Prince was sending a message to the world. Nowhere is this tragic reality clearer than in the final days of Michael Jackson. According to data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average civilian career spans roughly 42 years before retirement. By the time Michael Jackson turned 50 years old in 2009, he had been continuously working since the age of 5. He had given 45 years of his life to the stage. He had well and truly earned his retirement. In fact, he tried to claim it decades earlier, following his record-breaking Bad tour in 1989. Jackson publicly announced he was finished with touring. He openly admitted in interviews that he despised the physical exhaustion of stadiums, preferring the controlled, safe environment of a recording studio. And he had every physical reason to stop. Pop performances at Michael's level is an elite, punishingly athletic endeavor. It requires slamming knees into hard stages, executing extreme choreography that wrecks the spine, and maintaining peak physical condition. Michael was dealing with severe compounding injuries, and not to mention insomnia. The famous third-degree scalp burn from the 1984 Pepsi commercial, a catastrophic 1999 incident in Munich where a bridge set collapsed and dropped him feet to the ground, chronic back issues, and an ongoing battle with lupus. By 50, his body was a map of historic trauma. He should have been resting, enjoying the spoils of a legendary career. But in 2009, Michael's liabilities vastly outweighed his liquid assets. He was asset rich, but dangerously cash poor, hounded by endless legal fees from mounting court battles and continuous loans brokered against his music catalogues. He was forced back onto the market. A leaked financial report from 2007 showed Jackson had less than $700,000 in liquid cash. For a man whose estate cost $5 million a year just to keep the lights on, alongside an annual spending deficit where he routinely spent $20 to $30 million more than he bought in, he wasn't just cash poor, he was drowning. He didn't sign up for 50 stadium shows in London because he wanted to sing. He signed up because he quite literally needed the cash to survive the weekend. He publicly announced a final comeback residency in London, telling the world it would be just 10 shows at the O2 Arena to clear his debts. But behind closed doors, the master contract he signed with promoters AEG Live contained a lucrative crushing clause. If public demand exploded, which it did, the promoters had the right to scale the tour up. When over 1 million fans flooded the ticket queue, the corporate machine instantly triggered that option, ballooning a manageable 10-show run into a staggering, physically impossible 50-show schedule. Michael was legally trapped. He reportedly told his inner circle he was nowhere near the physical shape required to survive 50 nights. But with hundreds of millions in debt and an ironclad contract hanging over his head, saying no wasn't an option. His inner circle revealed that Michael was so severely underweight that wardrobe staff had to pad his clothes to make him look bigger and stronger on camera. He was a 50-year-old man trying to perform with the athletic intensity of a 25-year-old. Because a massive corporate economy required his physical body to generate cash, his fate was sealed, trying to fulfill an economy he could no longer carry. This transactional cruelty isn't unique to Michael's story. It is the industry's default setting. Take Clive Davis, the legendary yet infamous music mogul, who engineered Whitney Houston's entire career and whom she loved deeply as a surrogate father and trusted mentor.
I want to acknowledge the man who last night was honored with the Recording Academy's Industry Icon Award, a man I consider to be my industry father. Please, Mr. Clive Davis.
On the night of February 11, 2012, Whitney passed away in her room at the Beverly Hilton. Yet while her body was still lying cold upstairs under a sheet, Clive Davis went ahead with his annual star-studded pre-Grammy party just floors below in the hotel ballroom. As celebrities drank champagne and danced, the bass from the speakers was vibrating through the floorboards beneath Houston's body.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. I don't know what could motivate a person to have a party in a building where the person whose life he had influenced so enormously and whose life had been affected by her.
It is the ultimate, chilling proof of the industry's golden rule. The machine doesn't mourn you. It sweeps your body aside and keeps the party going. If you think this dark corporate phenomenon ended in the 2000s, look closer at the modern landscape. The cycle has merely updated its software. Right now, across internet forums and fan spaces, there is a loud, anxious conversation happening regarding Ariana Grande. Fans are constantly pointing out how visibly frail and emaciated she is appearing during recent press cycles and performances. Just like the icons who came before her, Ariana has been encapsulated in hyperfame since her adolescence on Nickelodeon. She has survived public tragedies, relentless global scrutiny, and unrelenting corporate schedules. It is a life cycle that doesn't stop until physical intervention occurs. Look at Rod Stewart, performing at 81 years old, almost toppling over on stage, or Elvis Presley, heavily medicated and physically collapsing in his final years on Vegas stages because his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had gambled away his fortune and needed the performer to keep generating cash. Whether they say yes to their handlers or try to say no, the outcome is structurally rigged against the artist. Is there a way to break the cycle? Is it actually possible for pop stars to achieve true emancipation from this system? Yes, but it requires rewriting the entire business model, and we all know one icon who executed this masterfully. Rihanna recognized the lifetime subscription trap of the music industry early. She realized that as long as her primary income was tied to her physical body performing on a stage or releasing albums for a label, she would never be free. So she leveraged her global cultural capital to build a third-party source of wealth, Fenty Beauty and Savage X Fenty. By shifting her empire from the volatile world of recording labels to the massive margins of global beauty and fashion industries, Rihanna achieved something Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and other stars in this video never could: true autonomy and freedom. She escaped the infinite performance loop. She proved that the only way to retire as a pop star is to stop being a product for someone else's company and become the billionaire CEO of your own. But for the rest, who remain inside of the traditional music machine, the stage isn't a platform of expression. And until the contracts expire or the body fails, the show terrifyingly must go on.